Just a quick little proviso that while we are cheerfully calling all vegans, the opinions and beliefs expressed by them do not always reflect our own. And Jen Huther are partners in Vine and the two women behind The Social Herbivore, where they aim to elevate plant-based entertaining. They also dream teamed up on The Social Herbivore, their soon-to-be released book. Through this guide, they're removing the guesswork on how to pair vegan-friendly wines with plant-based food. So we are sitting down today with Priya, foodie, wine lover, entertainer, writer, TV host, vegan food consultant, vegetarian since 1995, vegan since 2011, Airbnb-er, and a consummate hostess with the mostest.
I try.
Thanks so much for inviting us over to your very cool backyard.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone can see it, but we're actually sitting under some grape vines here, and it looks amazing, and it's nice and relaxing.
Yes. Yeah. Gorgeous.
Now, Jen, your business partner, has had a love affair with wine for over 20 years. She's passionate about plant-based food and promoting uplifting of all women in wine. And she became Canada's first female master sommelier.
Yeah.
That was in 2011, correct?
That's right, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm hoping I'll be forgiven if I simply refer to her as a somm, so I don't...
Well, you should say a master somm.
A master
somm.
Yes. There we go.
Because there's a very different thing to be a sommelier to a master sommelier.
Amazing.
So who doesn't love good food? But so many believe that a plant-based diet is somehow limiting and boring. For me, taking animals off my plate actually opened up a whole new world for me, cuisine-wise. As a self-proclaimed foodie, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And honestly, when we talk to chefs, it is so interesting the difference between chefs who are open to plant-based and those who are not. Because I tend to find that those chefs who look at plant-based requests with sort of a frown and
disdain,
they've stopped playing, and I think if you're a chef, if you're an artist, you're a musician, whatever, it's all about playing and it's about exploring. So we find that the chefs who look at a plant-based meal request as an opportunity, they're the ones who really create some magical things. And it's really, it's always so fun.
The other ones are kind of stuck in a rut, stuck in a moment in time.
So, for the book, you created the dishes, and Jen was tasked with the unfortunate job of having to taste them all. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it was a 3-year process. So now I've been working on this book since 2015, sort of the concept for the book, when I first realized that, first of all, not all wine is vegan, eureka, and then trying to look up information on how to pair with plant-based food. Now, at that time I was in a relationship with a somm, so that's how this whole love affair of mine kind of grew and blossomed. But after...
Not a master somm.
Not a master, no. We went from somm to advanced.
There you go.
But not a master somm. But once I met Jen 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, and suggested this book to her, she was really intrigued because she is the only master somm in the world who's really dedicated a part of her passion to plant-based dining. She's very passionate about the environment, about animals, and health reasons, so many reasons that she chooses to eat plant-based in her
Sounds
own
all
life.
right.
She's pretty cool, So yes, I created the 40 dishes, and we spent 3 years tasting them with bottles and bottles of wine and 7 or 8 dishes at a time, picking, and it was tough research, let me tell you. But we did it for you all.
It's a sacrifice, but it had to be made.
Exactly.
Now, must confess, I'm not really a wine drinker, but the idea of wine and food pairing really did intrigue me. It sounded appealing. It seems, again, like a whole new world opens up, much like when we stopped eating animals. How satisfying is it to find that kind of aha explosion of taste?
Well, first of all, I want to say, I know that you, Sue, you said you are a beer drinker.
I am.
So I think, I love it when people say I don't like wine. Because I would say, tell me what you think, what you like to drink, and I bet you there's a wine that you would like. And with you being a beer drinker, I bet there are a lot of natural wines that you would probably like, or pet nat, because they have more of that funky feeling and that flavor, and a lot of bubble, a lot of that effervescence. So I would say try some natural or pet nat wines, and I bet will convert you.
I don't think it'll be too tough. Twist
that rubber arm of yours.
Yeah.
So, for those that aren't aware, you kind of touched on it. We're planning on asking some questions about this. But tell us a little bit about what that means, ideas of unfiltered wines and orange wines, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole topic in and of its own. We like to group the various types of winemaking, and that includes biodynamic, organic, sustainable, vegan friendly, of course, and then natural wines. So those are 5 very different approaches to winemaking. Not all of them mean the wine is vegan. And basically, the knowledge you need to know about what makes wine not vegan. When we talk about vegan wine, we're talking about what's inside the bottle, the juice inside the bottle. So to that extent, they use fining agents, such as things that were commonly found around the farm or around the vineyard: oxblood, fish bladder, egg whites, casein, to clarify the wine so that it's not cloudy, because nobody wants a cloudy wine. Now, natural wines don't do that. So already, natural wines, you can be safe knowing that they are, by their means, vegan friendly. But a lot of people prefer to have a very clear wine, so they would use some of those agents to clarify the wines. Now there are so many great alternatives, vegan-friendly alternatives to that. Pea protein, animal-free gelatin.
Pea protein just seems to be the answer to everything.
Yeah, it'll build you some muscles too.
Yeah, exactly. It is all filtered out at that point, but for attaching to the yeast to go down and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Bentonite, right, is also another good one. That's clay.
Activated charcoal, time, and gravity will do the trick. So it's often about patience, and a lot of the vegan-friendly winemakers we've talked to, and they may not be vegan, but their wines are vegan-friendly because they don't use those filtering agents. But they often talk about how it's really about letting the juice do its thing and just letting it settle. It will all clarify on its own, and those make some of the best wines.
So your sort of really your big contribution is in the pairing of the foods with the wines in that, right?
Yes, in the food side of things.
And did you ever have a situation where you thought something was going to go really great together and it's just like, don't do that?
Yeah, I think one of the common misconceptions for me are chocolate and red wine. Now, there are red wines that will go well with chocolate, but you cannot take that as a blanket statement, and just like a Pinot Noir with chocolate is not going to be very tasty at all. So I think there are certain things like that. If you're going to have a darker chocolate with maybe some raisins in it or something, and you pair it with an Amarone that has a lot of richness and a lot of depth, then that might be a great, or when a Malbec, great pairing for some chocolates. But things like that, there are some things that just don't work.
What about the flip side? Was there ever like a food item or a wine item that you weren't really crazy about, but once you got them paired together, it's like, wow, there's a synergy that's amazing.
Absolutely, and this is what Sue was asking me earlier about creating those perfect taste explosions, because really it doesn't really matter. If you don't care about wine, then you just drink whatever you want with whatever meal you're having. What we're trying to do is create an experience where both the food and the wine taste better together. So it's just this, you put that wine, as you're eating something, and it's just like, oh my God, this just created a whole new level of what this tastes like. So I'll give you an example. Neither Jen nor myself love Moscato. It's a fairly sweet wine, very bubbly. It's a great starter wine. It's a great summer sipper. Girls love it. I don't know about guys so much, but it's not it's not a wine that we would generally choose to open.
It's not a wine that a man may want to admit to loving.
Well, it's not a wine we would choose to have a glass of, But when we paired it with a spicy Thai curry, amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. And that is something we never would have expected. First of all, bubbles and spice don't always mix very well. And just really, we would never have thought to pair Moscato with probably anything other than maybe a dessert of some sort. And it was fantastic.
Well, interestingly, then, when you talk about these pairings, it is much like a relationship where you're bringing two different people together and they complement one another.
Opposites attract.
There you go, like the spice and the bubbles
Yeah,
together, right?
exactly.
Somebody a little on the feisty side and
Uh-huh.
someone a little more.
And on the flip side, you have, so you can do the opposites attract, absolutely, because that's often a really great way to pair. And the other option, going to the other end of the spectrum, is what grows together goes together. So you want to find similarities in the food and the wine, which is often why, well, Italian wines go so well with Italian food.
Okay.
They're grown in the same soil. They have some of the same, feels, flavors in their wines. Spanish wine goes with Spanish food. It's just what grows together goes together.
Absolutely. Do you defer to palate preferences, or is there something more complicated or sophisticated when you're trying to make those?
I don't know. I mean, I think the thing about Jen is that she is a master somm, and it took her 10 years and a lot of training to get that designation. There are fewer than 300 people in the world with that designation, so it's a very difficult title to achieve. And she is not a snob. And really, we can tell you everything we want to tell you about pairing, and she can sit down and have conversations with you for hours. But if you don't like it, you don't like it. At the end of the day, there are people who say, I don't like red wine, or I just don't like white wine. And if that's, different strokes for different folks. So whatever you like, great. We are going to give you some basics and some concepts to help you along the road. And so in the book too, we have 2 pairings for each dish, except for the desserts. So she does a high and a low, just to accommodate different budgets. And also sometimes we try with the white and the red to give an alternative.
It's really interesting. A good friend of mine, Jeremy Day, who's a sommelier, he's always saying, it's your mouth, you've been using it all your life. It's like yum or yuck. It's like anything beyond that is all refining. Right?
Yeah. I mean, you might try that Moscato and spicy Thai curry and say, you know what, I just don't like it because I don't like the bubbles, or I don't like white wine, or I don't like sweet wine. There's 100 reasons you may not like it, and that's your prerogative.
Definitely.
Yeah, so in doing the book, were there any areas where you and Jen kind of parted ways just based on your own palate preference, or where you really loved something and she wasn't as struck on it?
That, no, there weren't really.
Oh, that's cool.
There weren't, yeah. I mean, not to say I have a refined palate, I don't. And I'm not a somm by any means, nor do I have any aspirations
to. More of a gourmand than a gourmet.
Yeah, I'm a wine lover, not a wine connoisseur.
Yeah.
So there is a difference, but I have tasted a lot of wines with a lot of somms. I've been to a lot of industry tastings. I've had conversations with a lot of winemakers. So I think my understanding of wine, for whatever that means, has progressed. So no, there weren't any pairings where she thought it was fantastic and I was like, I don't know about this. And even if there were, I'm going to defer to the master somm. These 3 bottles we have in front of us are 3 of the vegan-friendly wineries from Ontario that we have on our directory. And when we, again, talk about what's vegan, we talk about what's in the bottle. We're not talking about the glue on the label.
That's right.
We're not talking about the wax on the seal. We're not talking about whether or not they use animal labor in the vineyards. Or manure. Some vegans say if it has manure in the vineyards, we won't. So there are different degrees for everyone, and we try to be as judgment-free as possible and really stick to talking about what's inside the bottle.
Although there are things like Barnivore, which is a
fantastic resource,
an amazing resource where people do push them on those questions a little bit and try to get responses from the winery, and then based on those responses, the information is updated. It's interesting actually to kind of read that website because of it, because they actually put in whatever the response is
you got
from the
people
maker.
pushing them back and
straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of touched on unfiltered wine a little bit. Can you talk to us a little bit about the benefits of unfiltered wine?
Do you mean in terms of like natural wines,
Yeah,
or you mean just vegan-friendly wines?
Well, just in, your feedback on.
Well, to me, and again,
we might be just using terms. We think they're synonymous, but they're not. I don't know.
Well, if you mean what do we think in terms of vegan-friendly wines?
Well, we can start there.
Okay, because I know that there's an interesting contradiction, I think, sometimes with consumers. If you look at organic, for example, when it comes to produce, or even if you're a meat eater, when it comes to organic meat, it's better.
Right.
It's automatically, we want that. When it comes to wine, if people hear organic wine, and when organic became a big thing in the wine world, at first it was frowned upon. People thought it must be lesser than. We are finding that...
They're thinking there's no alcohol in it or something, right?
Right, or that somehow it's been farmed differently to affect it in an adverse way. And we get a little bit of that with vegan too, that some wineries don't want to label it as vegan friendly because consumers often think it's going to be less than. But as I was saying, when we were talking to winemakers around the world, they look at it as letting the grape do its thing, letting time and gravity really be the driving factors. So it's better.
Yes.
In a
That's
lot
beautiful.
of their viewpoints.
If you were, say, growing grapes out in BC, and for example, there have been all these wildfires and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Can one taste the climate or the
Sure.
what's going on?
Sure, yeah. I mean,
So can you, like say you were to take a moment in time, you've got this bottle of wine, and you taste that, it's like, that's when they had the wildfire.
Well, yeah, I wish Jen was here to talk about that, because when you get to the master somm level, it is amazing how you can look at a glass of wine, smell it, taste it, and then you have to identify where it's from, approximate year, what the grape is, you know, what region, what the price range is. Like, you have to really know the world of grapes and how different styles vary. You know, a Malbec is a Malbec, but it's also a Cahors. So it's the same grape, but done in two different very styles depending on where it's grown in the world. So you
maybe
definitely can
keep up on your current events too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it is tasting a moment in time and in history. That's the concept of terroir that is so often talked about in winemaking. And it's a concern this year in BC with the wildfires, because that smoke taint can get into the grapes. So it's going to be interesting to see how winemakers try to correct that
Because it's essentially changing the palette of what you're working with, ingredients wise. Like if you're doing a painting, you know, now I've got this smoke note that I need to somehow balance out with other things, right?
Exactly. Or if there's too much rain, you know, it can create some fungus and mold. So there's lots of problems.
On that, what are some of the regions that you've had the pleasure of being able to go taste the wines in those areas and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think I would
And
say
who's
France.
left on the bucket list?
Well, there's so many. Plenty on the bucket list for sure. My dream is to go to Italy and taste Italian wines, because really for me, Amarone is my favorite wine, and Tuscany, I mean, it's just, to me, that is the epitome of wine and just travel. But I've been to France several times and been to a lot of the wineries there, and it's just, it's a real treat to be able to go and taste the wine where it's from. Even then to come back here and to pick up a bottle from a vineyard that you've been to is amazing. I've been to California. Yeah, it's amazing to then know a bit of the story and the place of what you're doing.
Well, you get that little moment of nostalgia then as well, right? That time when I was in Paris.
Oh, yeah, you know, the lavender, it was so pretty.
Oh, mais oui.
Oui.
Okay, well, let's talk about the book.
Let's talk about it.
The photography is stunning, and I mean, I only saw the PDF copy, and in going through the pages here, it's absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
Loads of tips for people, and as you were saying, kind of both a value and a splurge wine choice that makes it very inclusive for anybody, I suppose. So there's really something for everyone, but what makes it so unique? What is it about this book?
Well, it's the first book of its kind. There has never been a book
That's pretty
talking
unique.
about wine pairings for plant-based food. Even now, with all the resources on the internet, it is still tough to find information on pairing. There are a lot more people doing it. There are lots of sommeliers around the world who are vegan themselves and who focus on vegan wine. But you will find very limited information still on how to pair different things with food. I do want to give a shout out to Kat Rizza, who was our photographer, amazing Toronto-based photographer, also vegan. We worked very hard to have the entire team behind this book be vegetarian or vegan friendly, like as plant-based as possible. Our makeup artist, Shannon, was amazing, and you know, even the person who laid out and designed it is also plant-based herself. So it was really important to us to have as many people believe in the ethics behind the book as possible.
You mentioned earlier you've been working on this book for how long now?
Since 2015.
That's
You were just a young girl back then, right?
Even then, I was not a young girl. But you know, being vegan has preserved me
There we
quite
go.
nicely.
Did the pandemic have anything to do with the affecting of the timing of the release and that sort of stuff?
Absolutely, absolutely, because it's so hard. I mean, we self-published this book. We had talked to several publishers, and we talked to several publishers, but we wanted to have creative control over the
Yeah.
book. We also wanted to get it out soon, and most of the publishers we talked to were saying it's like a 18-month timeline, and we had all the content, we just had to put the pieces together. So that said, neither of us are doing this full time. This is really a passion project for
For
both
sure.
of us. So trying to find the time to dedicate to even create 6 to 8 dishes and collect, 20 bottles of wine, doing that repeatedly was a challenge. So COVID did give us a condensed time period where we could focus on this because we couldn't do anything
Got
else.
nothing else to do, so.
Exactly.
So, does an individual have to be plant-based to really get
No.
value out of the book?
Absolutely not. We would say that this book is a bridge. The point is, and Jen in her own life, she eats plant-based at home, but for her work, she cannot be fully, her work involves non-plant-based dining as well. She has to be able to pair for everybody, all the consumers she interacts with. But the point of this book is that if you have a daughter-in-law who's coming over for Christmas and you don't know what to cook and she's tired of eating just the side dishes,
Yeah.
well, we're going to give
We've
you...
all been there.
We've all been there, We want to give you a bunch of recipes to inspire you with dishes that everybody at the
Well,
table
in
can
these
enjoy.
recipes, they just ran the complete spectrum.
Yeah, we really did try, We tried to cover a lot of different types of cuisines,
For
so
sure.
different ethnic cuisines. We tried to cover different flavor profiles so that, because this isn't a cookbook per se, it's not a book with 150 recipes, because that's not the point of it. The social herbivore for us is about conversations that happen over the dining table and about those magic moments with
Yeah,
friends
creating
and loved ones. Yeah, so it's about entertaining, and that's why it's split up into small talk, big talk, and sweet talk, as
Yeah,
opposed
that was
to
cute.
appetizers, mains, and
That was
desserts.
really cute. Yeah.
Thanks.
It was really lovely to see that you were supporting the Toronto Vegetarian
Yes.
Food Bank through the book sales. What made them your charity of choice?
They're our charity of choice for everything we do
Oh,
because,
well.
again, for us, it's about food and dining should not be reserved for the wealthy. These are experiences that everybody should be able to enjoy, and that is specifically why Jen wanted to put a splurge and a budget-friendly
Yeah.
pairing to make it accessible for everyone. Because even she and I, we don't drink $150 bottles of wine every day, and I never buy $150 wine. I'll be
If
honest.
somebody wants to buy it for you, you're not going to be a
please, by
snob
all
and turn them
means.
down.
You'll make sure to find the perfect pairing if somebody brings it over.
Happy to do that.
Yeah.
And I've tasted my share
You're like,
of
I ain't no
fabulous wines.
snob. I'll drink your wine if you want to pay for it.
Absolutely. And through meeting winemakers and being at tastings, I've had the opportunity to taste some fabulous wines, but it's not my habit to go out and buy $40 bottles of wine. I probably spend between $15 to $22 for a bottle of wine, usually on the lower end, in my basic everyday life. So the Toronto Vegetarian Food Bank for us is just a nonsensical, it is, sorry, I'm going to start back up.
It's the obvious choice.
Yeah, the Toronto Vegetarian Food Bank for us is the perfect logical
Pairing.
partner.
It's the perfect pairing.
It's the perfect pairing. We really believe in the work that they do.
Oh, Alex. Yeah.
Yeah, the work that they do is so important, and they are the only food bank where you can get specifically food for a plant-based diet, and that is so hard. And you shouldn't have to compromise your ethics
Exactly.
for your need to feed your family.
Absolutely. So the book itself, when is it available? Where is it going to be available? What's this?
Well, our official launch date is October 5th.
Okay.
And it will be available, the ebook will be available on our site. It will also be available on Amazon. So you can do a order to print, print on demand, or get the ebook. But we're encouraging people to come to us directly for the ebook. And the hard copy is available in Toronto, and it will be available in Niagara and in Prince Edward County at a couple of specific wineries.
Yeah.
Are you
you've got,
prepared to let us know that now? Or?
We do have them. I just want to make sure that all our ducks are in order before I
Oh,
announce
okay,
Gotcha.
them.
because
Okay.
here I am. I was just ready to blurt it out. So
Well-
yeah, you said that.
It'll all be on our website.
And perhaps by the time this is released, it will be written right down here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just fun. Can you tell us a little bit about Terra and how people can go about meeting her?
Yes, so Terra is my Airbnb property for plant-based vacations, and I really wanted to have a space that could respect that, not only in my own life, but for people, for guests like yourselves who are plant-based or vegan and want to travel but don't want to be in a space that has had animal products in it.
Well, it's like somebody not wanting to stay in a smoking,
Exactly.
a hotel room where they smoke.
Yeah, so Terra is located in Colborne, Ontario. It's just a 90-minute drive from Toronto, very close to Prince Edward County. We did a lot of the photos. We did actually most of the photos for the book at Terra, except for the food photos, which Kat did all on her own. But I put my heart and soul into that. It's a very eco-friendly retreat. All the furniture was bought from yard sales or secondhand. The stuff that I had to buy new was linens and towels for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And the mattresses, which were they're vegan mattresses, Casper brand, partly because that's the name of one of my cats. So
I was wondering,
yeah. So I tried to be as eco-friendly in the decor of the place as possible as well, and people can find it on Airbnb. So for anyone who's interested in booking Terra or just looking at her, you can look up on Airbnb. It is Terra, home for plant-based vacations, and she's in Colborne, which is Colborne. I'm sure you'll write that down here too. But I encourage you to come and experience her. She is such a beautiful space. There's 4 bedrooms, so it can sleep 8 people, and it's very kid-friendly. And I feel so calm the minute I walk through her doors, and I think everyone out there will feel that same way.
Amazing.
Well, and as we were saying, you get the both of best worlds. Here you are in the city, living, close to
In the city.
downtown, in the city, and then off to that beautiful retreat. And you have a little e-cookbook that kind of or just to help people.
Yeah, because again, it's not only for vegans. I wanted to make it accessible so people, and I've had probably the majority of my guests have been non-plant-based, but they're willing to experiment with plant-based, and that's my goal.
Yeah.
That's who I want to reach.
Yeah.
Because I want them to experience a weekend or a week, whatever they book, and say, you know what, I actually enjoyed my time here, and I didn't even notice that I wasn't eating any animal products. So my goal is to kind of, again, bridge that gap. It's always about bridging that gap and not creating any judgment. So it's open to everybody.
I love bridging gaps. Sometimes I get a little judgy. I admit it.
So, so recap-wise, on your website, you've got a huge list of vegan-friendly wineries.
We do.
Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, so it's a directory of Canada's vegan-friendly wineries, and these are all wineries that we have either visited ourselves or that we are familiar with. There are a few in BC as well, but the majority of them are right here in Ontario. And it's another way for us, especially during COVID. We always want to support local farmers and local businesses. And I know that there is, again, this sentiment that Ontario wine isn't as good as other wine from other regions. And we are a new wine region, so our grapes are not 150 years old or anything like that, but we make some fantastic wines here, and we have some really talented winemakers. So I encourage people to test them out. There's wines for every budget.
Well, we used to always say that Canadian television shows sucked, right? But now we're getting a lot of good stuff coming out, so it's the same thing. We can extrapolate.
Right, and for those that are interested in wines that are outside of Canada, as we mentioned earlier, Barnivore is an excellent place.
Yeah, founded by a Toronto couple, which is amazing. So yay, Toronto.
Yeah.
It is a really, really great resource because it is so hard to find wines that are vegan friendly. However, we're finding more and more wineries are putting a little V on their bottle, so it is
becoming a selling point.
It is becoming a selling point because consumers are demanding it. So continue demanding it.
So, for socials, give us all the details for your socials.
Sure,
they're going to be sitting right here.
Yes, so Social Herbivore is socialherbivore.co, and our Instagram is @socialherbivore, and we're also on Facebook, And then on my private
Are you
side,
social herbivore on Facebook? Because I'm
Yes,
starting
we
to
are.
see a little pattern.
We're social herbivore. How did you guess that? Smart one there.
And
You get nothing past me.
Nope.
and you
on
were
my
saying as well.
Yes, on my personal side, it's what Priya said. So that's where you can find information about Terra and about just some of the work I do on the vegan world side, vegan lifestyle side. So it's what Priya said on Instagram, Facebook, and website, whatpriyasaid.com.
Well,
What
Priya,
would Priya do? That's how I'm going to live my life from now on.
Well, sometimes you need to
Get myself
be
in
careful.
trouble.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
final question,
oh,
and my fingers are crossed. Any possibility of a beer pairing follow-up book?
Oh, you know what? We're definitely open to doing pairings of all sorts on social and for our blog. But in terms of a whole book dedicated to it, I don't know. We might expand a little bit in terms of different beverages for the next book. But right now, we're all just focused on getting this fantastic book out
Yes,
to the
for
world.
sure.
So
Yeah.
and well, I just want to say thank you so much for taking some time to be on the show. It was a pleasure to sit down with you in this wonderful space and to learn about all the amazing things that both you and Jen are doing. So thank
Oh,
you.
we got to meet Casper and Kaya and Isis and all your little bee friends who have been joining
yeah,
us.
I only wish I could have put out the charcuterie and we could have tasted with some of the foods, but the wasps wanted the food more than we did.
Yes.
It's all good. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you again.
Anyway, cheers.
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 Blink. Our next guest and the team at her winery have proven you can be respectful and caring of animals and the planet and still create spectacular gold medal wines. They produce the first certified vegan wine, not just in their town, not just in their county, not just in their country, but in the world, and are recognized in all sorts of industry publications. With a mission to provide the ultimate wine country experience and build an artisanal winery worthy of world admiration, they are a must-visit destination located in Prince Edward County, Ontario, where they have a large wine up in their portfolio. See what I did there? Wine is the answer. What the heck was the question? Please welcome Sherry Carlo of Carlo Estates to Calling All Vegans. Yay!
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank you.
good.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. And yeah, you're coming to the wrap of your high season at the moment, so thanks so much for setting some time aside to chat with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Yeah, we're just coming in for landing on harvest. We're still going through some ferments and lots of punch downs, and we're not quite to the point where we will barrel down for the season. But what's really been amazing with this whole COVID pandemic is nobody's traveling abroad, so everyone's coming to the county.
Right
so
on.
it's not winding down. It's still happening.
That's awesome.
But thank gosh we got good weather.
I knew what you were talking about a little too, because you were using all those industry terms and they weren't completely going over my head. I was doing my research. So if one comes at it from a nominative determinism angle, being named Sherry, you were kind of destined to own a winery, huh? So how long have you had this love affair with wine?
Well, I started falling in love with wine back when I was a junior in the advertising industry. I was an art director. So I was part of the creative team that would work together with a copywriter to come up with ideas for things, whether they be TV ads or even like events. So we were actually doing an event for Altamira, and they would have a fund management dinner at the Royal York Hotel every year. So one year they decided to invite Hugh Johnson to come and speak as the guest speaker. And so the concept we came up with was to make every corporate table a different wine region. So in order to art direct that, I had to find out about all these different wine regions. And I kind of fell in love with the lore of wine, like all the topography and the labels and the beautiful etchings and all the designations that are on the label. So I kind of geeked out. And then I opened the bottle and found out there was something quite nice inside too.
Well, I was very lucky to actually be familiar with your wine for quite some time now. Previously, I had a job working at Cafe Taste in Parkdale here when we specialize in Ontario wines. And so Jeremy Day, the sommelier there, first introduced me to your stuff, and I fell in love with it so quickly. So it's a pleasure to be speaking with you again about this now.
Yeah, well, please remember me to Jeremy. I haven't seen him in person for a while.
I will definitely mention you to him when I speak to him next. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about your vegan backstory? What was it that led you to become aware of these things and make these changes in your life?
Well, it was first completely for shallow and vain reasons. When I was first living on my own in college, I realized I had got that freshman 15 going, and I realized it would be cheaper and easier to keep my weight off if I ate vegan. And plus, so I started doing that for vanity reasons and because I was cheap. But
animals don't care why you stop eating them, right?
Exactly. They're like just happy. Anyway, from there, I ended up going down to the Toronto Vegetarian Summer Festival down at Harbourfront. Oh, yeah. And I guess I walked into the wrong room at the wrong time, but maybe some would say the right room at the right time. And I saw how animals were being treated in slaughterhouses. And I was completely appalled and didn't want to like that. I would just think about that all the time, and it would motivate me to just stay on the path besides being vain and cheap. And then I ended up getting a job in advertising because I was at OCAD at the time. At the time it was OCA. And I got a job in advertising, and it was really hard to be on set like 12 hours a day. There's only so many, I don't even know if Blue Smarties are vegan, but there's only so many Blue Smarties you can eat. So eventually I kind of fell off the turnip truck, as it were, and started eating a little bit of stuff again. But when I came back to the county and I moved here full time, and Richard moved, we bought the land in 2005. He moved full time in 2008. So I moved full time in 2010. So somewhere in there, I don't know if I was actually here full time or not, but I was watching videos late at night in the county because there was nothing to do. The sidewalks were open. And again, stumbled across some more videos, and I was just like, that's it. I am not participating in this. I was so mad. I was furious at the world and furious at mankind and hate people, hate humans.
I'm getting to be quite a little misanthropist myself. So
So it was bad because I was so frustrated that I couldn't get everyone to change. I'm like, wake up. Oh my God, what are we doing? But I realized that I couldn't change them, but at least I could change myself. So I just declared that I was not participating in that anymore. And then I found out that wine wasn't necessarily vegan.
Yeah.
So then
your world came crashing down.
So then I told Richard, my late husband, I said, look, I'm going vegan. I'm not eating any more animal products. You can do whatever you want, but I'm not doing it. And I said, and also, by the way, wine is not vegan, so I'm not having that anymore either. And he was like, what? So he set out to prove to me that he had been making his wines accidentally vegan since the beginning as an amateur winemaker. So he set out to show me that even since then, he was making his wines vegan because for him, he felt like the processes that he was using would make a better wine. He was one of only 52 wine judges, and he tasted a lot of wine, and he just was making the best wine that he could. And it just so happened that it was vegan. So he set out to prove that to me. And then when he realized it was that important to me, he got the idea that we should be first to market to certify our wines as vegan, because he was an engineer and he was all about the certification processes. So he said, we should get certified as vegan. There's no one else doing that. And if it's that important to you, it's going to be that important to everybody else. So we did.
For those who may not understand and know, what is it that other wineries may be doing that would not make it vegan by default?
Yeah, so it's made out of grapes, isn't it? What the heck? Why the heck isn't it vegan? What would make it not vegan? Well, there's actually 3 steps in the process of winemaking that will determine whether or not a wine is vegan or not. So the first step is after crushing and distemming and fermenting, and you press the wine off, there's little bits of seeds and skins floating around in the wine, which makes the wine look hazy. So with time and gravity, anything will settle out. But sometimes, be it cash flow or inventory reasons, a winery has to go faster than what they might like. So they need to get that stuff to settle out faster. So they'll use something heavy and gelatinous to act like almost like a French press. So it basically pushes all those particles down to the bottom of the tank. And then they use a pump to pump off the clear wine into another tank and then drain off the sludge or the lees or whatever. So traditionally, winemakers have used things like isinglass, which is fish swim bladders, and sturgeon swim bladders and scales. Casein, which is powdered milk. So if you have a lactose intolerance, your headache may be coming from something other than tannins and sulfites. Also egg whites. So again, some people have egg intolerances. And
albumin,
sometimes
right?
they even, sorry?
Albumin, right? That's the
Yeah. And then sometimes they even use things, especially more so in Europe, of things like ox blood and pig's blood, because they're cheap byproducts of the slaughter industry. Sorry. If we ever do need to pass something through the wine, which we don't do very often, because you'll notice a lot of our vintages are really behind, because we go slower, because we have less erasers in our toolbox. So we have to do it right the first time. But if we ever do use something, we use bentonite clay, which is really great because when it gets wet, it restructures itself into a brick type formation. So when it goes down through the wine, nothing for sure gets through the bentonite clay. So that's really great. So that's the first process, and that's called fining. And then there's the, right before a winemaker bottles a wine, they can adjust the acids and the tannins in the wine to make the wine taste smoother. It's kind of like a way of helping the wine to age more quickly. Many of the wines like that I've seen have a screw cap on them because they are, the winemaker wants to seal in the way that the wine tastes at that moment in time. So that by the time you get it, it's pretty stable. And by the way, most people in the modern world, they buy wine within the wine that they purchase is drank within 90 minutes of purchase. That's it. Yeah. So most screw cap is fine because, you're going to go home and drink it within an hour and a half. So it's no biggie. But we do all of our winemaking in the old world way. So we use like a proper cork and that's so that the wine can breathe and a little bit of oxygen can get into the wine slowly over time to help it age. So we leave all our acids and tannins in place because we want to give the wine the bones to lay down in your cellar for 25, 30 years. So if you ever do need to adjust acids or tannins, like you want to do a little tiny, a little tweaking here and there, you typically would use protein because the acids and the tannins adhere to the protein. It makes that particle heavier and then it precipitates out. And again, you can rack it off into another clear tank. So for us, rather than using ground up animal parts, we use potato protein, pea protein, or pumpkin protein. So we're basically putting a vegan smoothie through our wine. So the third process is a process called chaptalization. So there's 2 times a winemaker might chaptalize. The beginning is, the first time is during fermentation. They might want to increase the alcohol level because alcohol is just the result of yeast eating the sugar in the juice itself. And then the byproduct of that is alcohol and carbon dioxide. So you can do the math on what you're really drinking. We're not helping. You might add a little bit of sugar to feed the yeast so that they can create higher alcohol, which creates more warmth in your mouth. So the winemaker might want to make a wine warmer. But but generally, like, we don't capitalize our wines. Winemaking is kind of like making that perfect lemonade. It's the art of balancing the acid in the juice with the sugar in the juice. So sometimes if you make a Riesling or a Gewürztraminer, an aromatic white, you might want to lift the fruit a little bit because it's too acidic. So they'll add in a little sugar just to lift the fruit, round out that mouthfeel, and it just has better balance. They help balance the wine. The problem with sugar is not vegan because it's bleached using animal bones or animal char.
Yeah.
But for us, we do not do that with any of our table wines. All of our wines are dry, except for our fortified port style wines. We do have, there's like 90 grams of sugar in that, and that's an after dinner dessert type wine. For that, we use Red Path, which is accidentally vegan.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah,
but that's just the wine in the in the bottle itself.
Right.
well, yeah, because like not only is the wine in your bottle certified vegan, but all of your vineyard practices are vegan. Your packaging is vegan, including the glue and the vegetable ink for the labels. Your menu is plant-based. And even your principles have vegan principles, right? So
That's right. Both Sachs and I are vegan.
Yeah, you're not just taking advantage of this marketing trend to green or humane wash. Like, you actually walk the walk, and you're not compromising the values you hold dear. Can you tell us a little bit more about your green and cruelty-free philosophy?
We're all going to die if we don't smarten up. And he's like, well, we're all going to die.
Yeah. Well, we're hurrying up the process and making it, well, we're taking others with us. That's not fair.
How would you describe your wines?
I think they're beautifully balanced. They're all like, people always say to me, which is your favorite wine? But it's very hard to choose because they're all like your children. We have about 25 of them, but they're very clean. And I think I'm a little bit guilty of having what we call cellar palate, because I drink a lot of our own wines because I have a lot of Scottish blood in me. I'm pretty cheap. So I'm just drinking the wines that we make. But I do like to try other wines when we're out and about. And I think I'm a little spoiled because I think our wines are beautiful. We quite often get comments from customers that they go through a portfolio tasting and they can't find a wine that they don't like. So I do agree with the assessment that they're very clean and fruit forward tasting, beautifully balanced. They're just beautiful wines. I'm pretty lucky. We have a really awesome winemaking team with Derrick Barnett and Spencer Mayer. We're
On
pretty
the
lucky.
topic of your portfolio, how many different wines do you have available? And about how much wine do you produce in a year?
Good question. So we have about, I've even actually lost count. I think it's somewhere around 25. I think it was up around 27, but they've been slowly, like, Sachs is like really the business mind, and he's been trying to get me to slow down a bit. But now, he's also a wine enthusiast and the supporter and lover. And it's really actually a bad situation because you've got a bunch of artists in charge of a winery, and we just want to create. And so every time we hear about some obscure grape, we always want to get our hands on it. So we have about 25, I would say, but currently right now, because we're at the end of the season, we have around 8 or 9 that we're pouring in the tasting room. We're just about to release 4 more wines, and we'll release another. We usually release one of our showcase wines called Quintus. We release it just before Christmas, so you can have Quintus for Christmas.
Yeah. All I want for Christmas
is a bottle of Quintus.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So get on the waiting list for that one because it's a beautiful wine. It's 5 of the original Bordeaux grape varietals in one bottle. We're now up to 7,200 cases, and we want to get up to 10,000 to be kind of like an artisanal boutique winery. We sell out of everything we make, every single vintage. And we always encourage our guests to buy what you like when you're here because it will sell out. Like we try to avoid crying and gnashing of teeth. So tell people, take what you want now. It's true. But the thing too is as our clients come out and learn about us, they get to know that they can also buy our wines online. So what usually happens is someone stumbles across us somehow. They come out to the winery, they find some wines that they fall in love with, and then they go home and they get to the bottom of the bottle and they go, gee, I really should have got more of that. And So what they start doing is they go online and they order, and we do free shipping within Ontario for purchases of $100 or more. And there's certain provinces that we can ship to as well. So definitely, if you're outside of Ontario, people can contact us directly to get some of the wines.
So we're halfway through October. How many gold medal scores have you had so far in 2021?
It's been quite a fantastic, like we thought last year when we were bragging about having 18 that was unprecedented, but now this year we're up to 23 for this vintage alone.
Wow.
Of this current year, which is really amazing. And especially seeing as so many of the award shows have been canceled because of, they've been postponed because of COVID. But we really got some wonderful distinctions from the All Canadian Wine Championships. Our very first bubble wine, our very first sparkling wine we've ever made. We thought it was going to be like one of those the first pancake you make on Sunday morning. You know, it's always like runny on the inside and burnt on the outside.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it
Give
falls
that
apart.
to the, yeah.
I'm like,
Kid you
okay, I'll
don't
eat
like.
that one myself. We thought that was what would happen with our first 2020 bubble, but it turned out it ended up getting a gold medal at the All Canadian Wine Championships. So we were really pleased with that.
You're sitting there looking all happy, but you're like, what?
Yeah. And I always say to people, there's no pressure to buy that because I will happily drink it all myself. So don't you worry.
You have a little
it's fine.
stash?
You can leave it. I think I have one bottle of the bubble right now. So the good news is last year we made 4,000 liters, but we sold out so fast that this year we're making 10,000 liters.
Oh,
so there'll be
you go.
more.
So no more damn it moments when you've given your last bottle away.
I know. What was I thinking? Oh my gosh.
Now you have on board Derrick Barnett. He's kind of a veritable winemaking rock star with a cult-like following. What does he bring to the table? Has he kept things on somewhat the same trajectory as your late husband? And how did you manage to snag him?
Oh my gosh. Derrick is just an awesome, awesome prince of a man to work with. He's a prince among men. The reason I was able to snag him was actually Richard snagged him because they used to know each other. They met each other up in Ottawa when we would go up to do the Lumiere Festival. And we met Derrick. So after the event was over, I was usually exhausted because it was usually in January and I was on a cleanse or something. So I was exhausted. But the Somme would invite all of the winemakers to go down to the into the cellar to open up whatever they wanted to open up to thank them for pouring for the festival. And of course, they'd be there till 4 a.m. drinking Dom Perignon. So Richard somehow charmed Derrick down in that cellar at the Brook Street Hotel.
It's only freaky if you hear the door, somebody kicking the door shut behind you at the top of the cellar steps and flicking off the light, right? And
that's no wonder you're a beer drinker.
yeah.
Anyway, so it was, obviously years later, when I'd met Sachs, we were up at his family's cottage up in Georgian Bay. And Sachs he's been a wine enthusiast from the age of 14, which is a whole nother story. Yeah. But he belonged to a lot of different wine clubs. So he would get these newsletters and we're up there and he got this newsletter and he said, oh my God, like I was just saying to him, I don't know what I'm going to do because we had another winemaker and it wasn't really a good fit because he was used to big wineries down in California. And like, we're a cool climate and we're like a shoelace winery, like shoestring winery. So I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I can't find someone that's like as good as Richard. And then he's like, oh my God, Derrick Barnett is available. He just left Lely Estates. And I'm like, what? And he's like, call him now. And I'm like, no, we're on holiday right now. I'll call him when we get back. And he's like, no, call him now. so I finally called
he just
Derrick.
keeps nagging you, right? And you're finally just to shut him
okay,
up.
I'll call him. So I called him and I just asked him, I said, when a winemaker stops making wine, can you really stop them from making wine? Like, you still want to make wine, don't you? And he said, listen, and I said, because I'm kind of wondering if you might want to make wine for Carlo. And he said, look, I don't like to talk about business over the phone. So you have the rest of your holiday and I'll drive over to Prince Edward County and we'll talk. So the next week he drove to the county, and in the time it took us to walk from his car down to the bridge, which is less than a 5-minute walk, we had struck a deal, and we made a commitment to each other on a handshake, and we've been working together ever since. So
Awesome.
he is incredible. What he brings to the table is reassurance. Everybody had a collective sigh of relief when, people started saying, oh, Derrick Barnett's at Carlo Estates now. And everyone was like, oh, okay, Carlo's going to be fine. I certainly was. But he's not only is he exceptionally talented, he's extremely humble, and he's very gracious in everything that he does. And he's very, very wise. And he's actually mind-blowing. What's most mind-blowing for me is not only his incredible talent for making wonderful wines, he has such a great palate, but he has all the numbers in his head. Like, you can ask him, you can just go up to him and go, how much Cab Franc did we make last year? And how many labels do we need to do that? And he'll go, and then he'll tell you. I can't do that. I have to look at the inventory.
Rain Man living there, or working there for you, huh?
Yeah, he's the winemaking Rain Man. I'm going to tell him.
There we go.
Yeah, he's incredible. And he's if you go on our website, you'll see a picture of him, and you'll see, you may agree with me that he's basically 95% Sean Connery and 10%
I have had a look at him, yeah. Is there another wine region in the world similar to yours?
Just like everybody else, when Richard saw the soil, he was like, oh my God, it looks just like Burgundy, France. We have limestone soil in clay, and it's the only difference between our soil and Burgundy soil is ours is actually 4 times as old, from 400 million years ago. So the reason everyone's here is because the thinking is, once our vines become fully mature, and it takes about 25 years. So there's wineries out here that are 21 years old now. We're getting there. We're getting a lot of medals internationally, like not just us, like other wineries. So it's definitely, the region is really good for growing grapes. It's got that limestone that people seek throughout the world. So
Nice. Do you consider what you're doing there at the winery a form of animal activism?
I do, because I'm always impressed with how many people, I just get them to try things, and I don't talk about it. Like, as soon as you say to someone, oh, try this vegan cheese, they're like, ooh, I don't want that. That's gross. But if you say, have this cheese, it's made out of coconuts, they're like, oh, that's interesting. Let me try that.
Yeah.
Or, hey, it's made out of cashews. Or, hey, this one's made out of pistachios. Like, if you just talk about it in normal terms, and, I'm not a big fan of frankenfood, but let's admit it, we're all junk food junkies every once in a while. So I eat my fair share of what I call frankenfood. But I think showing people that you can just take whole foods and make them into things, and we just call it vegan, so we know that there's no animal products in it, but you're used to this stuff. Like, this is just, our foie gras is mushrooms and lentils and sea salt and olive oil, and then coconut with a little turmeric on top, and that's our foie gras. Like, it's just lentils.
It sounds fancier, right? Than stuffing a tube down a goose's throat.
Have you,
Exactly.
to your knowledge, has anybody chosen to become vegan because of these interactions with you kind of sharing this with them?
I have had some closer family members, because when I was upset in the beginning, I used to be an angry vegan, where I would say, look what you're doing on Facebook.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
still be a
mellow over time. But I did have some family members go vegan. Usually the younger generations are easier, because they want to rebel against the generation that's above them anyway. So what easier way to rebel than not to eat meat? And I have had people, like the other day, we were in the winery, and we have this thing we call a picnic plate, and it's basically cheese and charcuterie on a plate with lots of veggies and dips and all sorts of stuff. And I overheard this one group talking, and they had ordered the picnic plate. I guess how there's always one ringleader in the group who is like the host. So she ordered the picnic plate for everyone, and they're all eating it, and they're eating it. And then she finally turns to her dad, who's probably he's probably 70, 75. And she's like, do you like the salami? Do you like the pepperoni on the plate? And he's like, oh yeah, it's really good. She's like, it's not meat. He's like, what? It's not meat. It's beans and wheat. And he's like, really? And she's like, yeah, it's vegan, Dad. You just ate something vegan. And you can tell none of them were vegan, right? And then he's like, well, it's pretty good. And she's like, yeah, it is pretty good. And I think that it just helps to break down some barriers. Like people are like, this is normal food and it's really delicious. And
So at the estate, you can pick up the social herbivore, correct?
That's right. You can. So the Social Herbivores Perfect Pairings for Plant-Based Cuisine is available for sale at Carlo Estates. And in order to help Priya and Jen promote it, we are doing what we're calling a dinner and a show tastings. So for $37 plus tax and tip, you get a 1-plate meal with that is paired to 3 wines. So we talk and we consult about which wines which recipe should we choose for which wines we want to pair. And I do a formal presentation so people learn about the wines and learn about wine in general. And then afterwards we have a musician who then comes in and plays music while you can then order your favorite from the tasting by the glass. And you can sit back and relax and enjoy some good music and digest some great vegan food.
That's awesome. And
$37, that's pretty good.
definitely.
Like this is another thing. We're basically pairing with either a well-known vegan entity to do the pop-up, or especially during the winter season when it's going to be snowing a lot and stuff, we're using more local talent, but they aren't necessarily vegan themselves, but we're challenging them to make this something vegan.
Right.
And everybody knows if they're doing anything with Carlo, it's going to be vegan. Like they all know. So it's great because I always we were actually going to do this event. We may still do it at some point. So this is like a registered thing, but we want to do the vegan, Richard used to call it the Schmeeg and Schmackdown. So that we would invite all of these different chefs to come in and they would make their best go at a vegan dish. And then we have, you charge tickets and people can try wines and try all the dishes. And then there's a People's Choice Award. But I think my activism is because I have, 6,000 of my closest friends following us on Facebook. When I go into a restaurant and I'm doing social media, they want to make sure that, that I'm going to take pictures of their food. So I think I've had a lot of good influence in the county. I've had a lot of people from, Toronto or different cosmopolitan cities coming out and saying, wow, I can't believe how many vegan options there are in the county. And I would just personally like to take credit for that because I've been that pain in the ass vegan, okay, what's your vegan option? Let's see it. Yeah. So we work a lot with Chef Chris Byrne, and he's been vegan for 20 odd years, I guess. And he's been cooking in all different international cuisines.
Well, he's a cool guy too. He's a lot of fun as well.
He's awesome. Yeah. And he is very avant-garde in his approach to his food. So it's high French cuisine almost. It's like a piece of art that you're getting at the same time as it's a feast for the eyes and the soul. So he's really great. And then we also have Chef Bailey Stalker, who she just got married. I think it's now Bailey Kennedy. So she's been doing a lot of stuff.
That's a very Irish sounding name now, huh? Bailey Kennedy.
Yeah. Wow. So she's been doing some stuff with us, and she does incredible food. It's almost like gourmet comfort food, but veganized gourmet comfort food. You can tell she's been classically trained chef. So she does a lot of really great stuff. And then we have different cheese purveyors. There's a company in the county called Cashew Winds, and she makes soft cheeses out of cashew, and it comes in a little jar. And you can, we featured her on our plates at various different times. And then we like to actually feature different cheese purveyors or Frauxmageries from all over Ontario. So we've had different pop-ups with people like Zengarry or the Georgian Bay Frauxmagerie or
Wandering Deli.
Wandering Deli.
Yeah.
There's so many great cheese producers.
Absolutely.
Stokes cheese.
Yeah.
Oh, and then we also do stuff with the Sausage Party. We've had them come out to do pop-ups for us during in the summer. We've done some pretty large concerts. We get to do 4 big events a year. So we like to do a concert in the summer and have a pop-up come out, and
Well,
And in the
sausage
meantime, we're gonna
party's name alone will get people out, right? Like even if they didn't have good food, right? It's like, what's this
Exactly.
sausage party
But
thing going
at the
on?
same time, we've also had people like Jamie Kennedy go and set up a booth right beside Toronto Sausage Party, and she would do the hot dogs and he would do the fries, and we got him to do vegan poutine. So he had to like source some vegan cheese and learn, like he looked into whether he should make it himself or whether he should source it from somebody. And so I thought it was really great that, we're exposing people to vegan food and they're finding out it's fun and it's delicious. And like there's so many things to try. And it's actually, you think about the traditional steak and potatoes meal is pretty steak and potatoes. Like that's all it is.
Right.
I know
over and
it
over
really
again.
opens things up. People think it's so restrictive, but instead you end up, when we've talked about this many times, it's just like boom, this world opens up. And
like I've tried fruits that look like something I've never seen. They look like something from outer space, and I didn't even know what it was. But my mom always used to say, "You don't have to eat it; you just have to try it." But I think it's really because 95% of what's edible on the planet is vegan. So hey, let's just try it out. And oh my gosh, I saw this horrible thing. I don't know if I should say this, but
Go for it.
now I have to because I brought it up. But somebody posted on a vegan group this morning about a fossilized poo, for lack of a better phrase.
Okay.
And they were talking about doing the DNA testing on this petrified human waste. And they discovered that it had way more fiber in it, like something like 10 or 20 times more fiber in it than what we have in our modern diet. So everyone goes on and like, well, the cavemen used to eat meat. Well, it turns out they didn't. They were eating like all sorts of greens and stuff. And they were talking about the amount of fiber would be equal to eating like 20 potatoes or like 2 things of cabbage or 3 things of cabbage. Could you fit anything else in your stomach after that? No.
I know, you put something the size of a human head in your stomach, like you're not eating too much after that.
We're on Saturdays, we're hoping to do events so that people can come out and have something to come out to. So we're thinking about Friday night, we'd have like a comedy night, and then we'd have like a jazz night, and then we'd have a karaoke night and a dance night. And then Saturdays, we always do these dinner and a shows. So those are all fun things. We also do, if you want to spend time with myself or with Sax, you can do what's called a gold medal tasting. We do the minimum group we do that for is 4 people, and it's $97 each. And basically we take you for a tour personally through the estate, and we taste 9 of our gold medal wines. And then we also do a big charcuterie board for you. So we pair the wines to the cheese and charcuterie, and then we give you consultation on what wines you should buy based on what you enjoyed during the tasting.
I was talking with Jonathan Belcombe. We had wanted to do an interview there at the Wander. It didn't work out, but he is, one of my heroes. But he did tell me that he and his partner, Susan, are, I won't call them frequent flyers, but they're big fans of Carlo Estates.
Oh, that's nice to know. Thank you.
So many people improve with age, most improve with wine, but all improve when they go vegan. So thank you very much for joining us, Sherry, and cheers.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I blew up.
Did you? You do it again?
I know my crackers.